Good morning to you all. I'm Willie Bragg. Welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show on this bright, it's kind of partially cloudy. I was going to say bright Friday morning. It's kind of cloudy in my neck of the woods. I That's where it stands. And how are you this morning? I see you're getting your first cup of coffee, Warren. I just had my cup of coffee a few moments ago. Now having some tea right here with me on the side to keep me going. And I hope all will be well. I presume that there will be a New Year's Eve show. I'm not saying there will be. I'm just assuming that Extra Bulla will have a New Year's Eve show. I'm not sure. I guess I'll find out soon enough. But I hope everybody's doing well. And while I don't really like to dive too much into the two-party drama between Democrats and Republicans, because I mean, they're problematic, both parties. They are problematic to the political discourse. As I said over and over again, we can't have nice things. Republicans don't want us to have nice things. At least they're honest about that. And Democrats only pretend to want us to have nice things. But when push comes to shove, they either do not have the fortitude to do this all the way like they promised, or they've been lying to us. Maybe a little bit of both. I'm on the camp of maybe a little bit of both. Um, so anyway, the only thing that Republicans sort of got going for them right now that the Democrats don't have is a primary. I mean, yeah, there is a primary to the Democratic Party. I mean, there is Marianne Williamson, there is Dean Phillips. But the Democratic Party don't want to have any debates. They don't want policies to be discussed and everything, and so I still don't buy into the election denialism that the right came up with in the 2020 election. I kind of do not buy into that conspiracy theory. Yeah, there are infractions in every presidential election by both parties. But I do not think that the Democrats are smart enough to cheat in an election like the Republicans claimed they did in 2020. And I will tell you why. And partly is, as I said, I don't think they're smart enough to do it. And, here's the thing. COVID was, as unfortunate as it might have been the best thing to happen to the Biden campaign, other than the stealing it now where the real steal took place, and that was against Bernie Sanders. That's where the election fraud took place. It was against Bernie Sanders in 2020, just as it was in 2016. That is the only thing that would constitute as an election steal. Now, it is fuckery, and it is shenanigans, and it is wrongdoing right now, what's being done in the primaries against Marianne Williamson, whatever you may think of her, and Dean Phillips, whatever you may think of him. And what was done against Robert Kennedy, he's no longer a factor because he's running as an independent. But what was done to those three was and is an injustice, just as it was against Bernie Sanders, and as it was done against Tulsi Gabbard, and Andrew Yang, and some of the other more centric candidates, Marianne Williamson. Once again, they were all kind of it was a concerted effort to bolster Joe Biden, and so anyway, but I do not believe that the fraud took place in such a massive scale to deny Donald Trump a second term. He wasn't that great of a president. Remember that. He wasn't that great of a president. Was he the worst president we ever had? I don't think so, but he certainly ain't on the top. I could tell you who was the worst, and that was George W. Bush, where an election an election. Well, I don't want to go into too much because I do not want the algorithms to go and take this video down like it was done previously back in 2022 with a commentary where the words were taken out of context. And I don't like it where my words are taken out of context and I'm being punished for it. Getting back to what I'm saying, there is a Republican primary, and Donald Trump is not participating in any of the debates. I guess one could say, why should he? He's so far ahead of the game. He's likely to get the nomination. I'm going to tell you that he's probably not likely to get the nomination, or he stands a chance of not getting the nomination. No, he probably is still likely to get the nomination. Let me re-clarify that. But what thing about Donald Trump, it is not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that Joe Biden would be the nominee either. And so, I thing about it is, look at the Republican primaries. Look at the all the candidates in competition to be in second place. Right now, it was assumed for the longest time that it was Ron DeSantis that had it in the bag to be the second candidate to Trump, if you will. But he's gotten into a little bit of trouble because he's got Vivek Ramaswamy. He's got Nikki Haley. That's and if I remember correctly, even though he will not for sure get the nomination, I think that Chris Christie has actually got a little stirrings going on. So, but Ron DeSantis has gotten into a little trouble because it was not a foregone conclusion. It was considered a foregone conclusion that he was going to be the second guy. Now that's all in play and all in question. And there are rumors stirring around that he's going to drop out or plans to drop out. And we'll see what happens. But I guess I'll get started with the first story here. And that will be on the Mediaite. On Mediaite. And let me go ahead and get everything set up. And I will read you this. Okay, here we go. All right, give me a second. And this is from Mediaite. And it says Fox anchor shovels dirt on DeSantis campaign, suggests that he could drop out after Iowa, beginning of the end. And this was on December 28th, 12:17 p.m. Fox News, Julie Banderas suggested that Florida governor and Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis might drop out after Iowa caucus if he does not perform well in the Hawkeye state, where he has invested much of his time and many of his campaign resources. Quote, unquote, make that patient comfortable. That's what advisors are actually referring to with Ron DeSantis. Began Banderas, referring to the New York Times report, quoted a DeSantis pollster and advisor using language to compare DeSantis' campaign to a patient in hospice care. That is an awful comment to hear, quote unquote, once again. That comment could mark the beginning of the end of the DeSantis campaign. This is obviously unwelcome news, but it also comes to less than 3 weeks before the make or break in January 15th Iowa caucus. I can't wait for that actually, because I like to keep up with primaries and the state caucuses, even if it is from the two-party system. That's my interjection. That's not what the article says, but I'll continue with the article. Continues Banderas. It is less than 3 weeks before that. So where does the governor and his campaign, and I mean he must finish in the top 2 spots, or he risks dropping out of the 2024 Republican primaries? And I make no secret, folks. You know where I stand on Ron DeSantis. I absolutely despise the man, and I have stated time and time again as to why I do, more so than Donald Trump. What do you see in the future DeSantis campaign as the Democratic operative, Tim Hogan? I think DeSantis ends his campaign. And this is one thing that I agree with Donald Trump on falling like an ailing bird from the sky. Answer Hogan. The campaign never took off. There were never enough momentum. You have strategists saying that he is now Ted Cruz without the personality instead of Trump without the drama. Ted Cruz has a personality? That's my question, which we were promised. I have always said that everything that you despise, projected, and real about, or real and imagined about Donald Trump without the comedy show would describe DeSantis. That's just what I've always said. But let me continue here. And like Matt said, I think he's going to stay until Iowa. He needs a first or very good second place finish in order to continue, in order for the campaign to go on. While DeSantis had a close gap between himself and Trump, under 13% in the national polling earlier this year, Trump has spent the year extending his lead over DeSantis and other competitors. Trump now holds a 50-plus point lead over DeSantis nationally, and the lead is 30 points in Iowa. Now, what does all this mean? Until recently, the consensus was that, you know, if something happened to Trump, like if he goes to prison, or if he passed away due to natural causes, because he's in his 70s and he's out of shape and all of that, and loves to eat junk food, he could keel over, and it who will be the presumed front runner at that point? Obviously, the conventional wisdom said Ron DeSantis. That's kind of in question these days. Now, if he drops out, if Ron DeSantis drops out, I suspect most of the Ron DeSantis supporters currently would probably trounce over to the Trump camp. I think the appeal of Ron DeSantis by most Republicans is that it's everything they like about Donald Trump without the things that they don't like about Trump. Well-known people like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, let's see, what's his name? I believe Mike Knowles, all are kind of on the DeSantis camp. Congresswoman, what's the name? Lauren Boebert of Colorado seems to be on the DeSantis camp. Jeb Bush of Florida seems to be on the DeSantis camp. I think that DeSantis is the dream candidate of establishment pro-Trump people who are basically what I call never Trumper Trumpers. They have all the trappings of the never Trump movement, but were on Team Trump either from day one or once he got the nomination in 2016. And people like and people who were always never Trump or never Trump adjacent, meaning that even though they may have voted for Trump as a lesser evil, not liking him in 2016 ended up becoming somewhat his biggest cheerleaders. And that camp might be the worst people around in the country, the ones who did not like Trump in 2016 because they thought he was too liberal. And then once he started doing the right-wing things that I despise Republicans for, those are the kind of people that end up saying, oh, Trump is base. And that's what we're caught with here with these people. So I would suspect most of them will probably go to Trump. But I think that there's also going to be some that will probably go to, some of them might go into Ramaswamy. But I think that as far as the old branch or the old wing, old faction, the Mitt Romney, John McCain, George W. Bush, Dick Cheney faction of the party, which is too right wing for me. It's too right wing for me. And I will argue that she takes stability out of the game. It's probably more right wing than Trump, in spite of looking middle of the road and moderate. I think that probably many of those people who are in that DeSantis camp who are still anti-Trump will probably go to Nikki Haley. Nimrata Ranhadwa, that is her real name. You know, the lady that wants to dox everybody on the internet and say, well, you should go with your real name. Well, Nikki Haley, your real name is Nimrata Ranhadwa. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with your name, Nimrata Ranhadwa. There's a lot wrong with your policies, but not anything wrong with your name. I mean, you know, if Vivek Ramaswamy is proud enough to refer to himself as Vivek Ramaswamy, nothing wrong with his name either. It's a lot wrong with his policies. Maybe less wrong with his policies than that of Nimrata Ranhadwa, Nikki Haley. I go by policy. Now, no Republican's going to get my support because I'm not a Republican. I even beginning to be one. But the point I'm trying to make is that she'll probably be the biggest recipient of a suspended DeSantis campaign. Now, let's go to this next thing about it. How dangerous is Ron DeSantis? And I would say that he might, in my opinion. Now, Nikki Haley is dangerous because of her foreign policy. Her foreign policy alone makes her dangerous. So I would say that right now, since everybody's in the field, that the two most dangerous candidates in the Republican primaries, and they're all too right-wing for me, none of them will ever get my support, but I would have to say it's Ron DeSantis and Nimrata Ranhadwa, also known as Nikki Haley. Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley are probably the two most problematic Republicans running. So here's a story from Truth Out. So I'm going to share you the story. You know, Ron DeSantis is a case study in the threat of fascism in the U.S. And Florida, Ron DeSantis has pursued white supremacist policies with deep roots in the Jim Crow era. And this is from December 16 of last year, 2022. It's still relevant because we're talking about a Republican candidate running for president. 2024 is going to be the most important year for fearless, trustworthy journalism. When you make a text, sorry. I'm sorry. That was part of our article. I thought it was going to say something like 2024 is going to be the most important election of our lifetimes, because obviously 2022 was the most important election. 2020, 1988 is the most important election of your lifetime. 1960, 1924. Everybody says that every 4 years. It's boring. Okay. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is an ascendant in U.S. politics, with new polling indicating that Donald Trump would lose to DeSantis if the Republican voters were given a choice today about who to vote for in the presidential primary in 2024. This is from last year. But what mainstream media are too often failing to recognize is how DeSantis' political actions, from his shameful treatment to migrants and his use of election police to terrorize voters, are fueling the emergence of fascist politics in the United States. And that's just covering the surface of DeSantis' authoritarianism. My take. Not the articles. That's not the words of the article, but my take. Too often, issues are dealt with the mainstream press in an utterly isolated fashion, removed from both a historical context and a number of related issues. For instance, many of the policies enacted by the GOP legislators, such as the banning of books, resonate with policies that were used in Nazi Germany and other totalitarian countries in the 1930s and 1970s. Treating issues, treating issues disconnected and in an isolated manner makes it difficult to understand how they fit into the broader pattern of domination and to reinforce each other. For instance, attacks on LGBTQ people of color, and the indigenous groups are rarely analyzed as part of the politics of disposability, in that the past ultimately led to the rise of totalitarian regimes of terror, concentration camps, and mass murder. In another example, the demonization of those considered unworthy of citizenship, along with the rise of anti-Semitism, racism, anti-immigrant hostility, nativism, and the war against the transgender youth, had habitually removed from the legacy of fascism. While some pundits have connected DeSantis' politics to an emerging authoritarianism, they still both fail to name the ongoing development of fascism in the U.S. and to recognize that it takes different forms in different societies and historical formations. They dismiss any talk of fascism by suggesting that its unique historical attributes, such as the genocidal use of concentration camps, had to be repeated precisely in order to assign the term fascism to present events. Fascism is never entirely interred in the past. It is dangerous ideology that may go into remission, but never disappears. Very true. We can talk about Chile, what they did to left-wing dissidents in the 1970s, putting them in helicopters and 30,000 feet in the sky, just tossing them off the helicopters. I remember there's a Proud Boys, I believe, t-shirt that has that, reminiscing that sort of thing. Fascism is recurrent and an indefinitely translatable phenomena, and often takes the cultural and political attributes of society in which it appears. The refusal to acknowledge that fascism can appear in many forms, often lying dormant in a society until it reemerges a certain force to unleash it, reinforce the willingness of many to retreat into silence and ignore the seriousness of the emerging fascist threat. Expressing ourselves in words, learning from history, and making connections among desperate events all matters in the age of fascism. So basically, it is a laboratory of fascism what's happening in Florida. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. I mean, the attack on independent journalists, I don't know, it didn't become law, but I know that there was talk about a law that would basically, if enacted, would make all critics in the state of Florida, and we can assume the online left. And, anybody from Farron Cousins, Ring of Fire, we're talking about Nays Garden, who does a stream. We're talking about James Fauntleroy of the RBN, who has the JB Font show. Or we're talking about Jim Perlman. We're talking about people who are on the left and are critical of Ron DeSantis. And this law passed, and they will be fined for criticizing Ron DeSantis, and they will have to register and report to the state of government of Florida all their criticisms of Ron DeSantis. And that runs contrary to the First Amendment. If you're a conservative and you are free speech alpha and you're for Ron DeSantis, think about what you're doing. Wanting to force professors and faculty at universities to register their ideology. It has a very 1984 twist to this. We're talking about attacking. Now, I hate corporations, including Disney. I mean, I just hate them in general. But if you're going to go and attack a corporation, you should attack corporations for the right reasons. Like, they're fucking over their workers. They're not providing a living wage, that sort of thing. But because they said Ron DeSantis don't say gay bill is terrible, Ron DeSantis had this, how dare you, I'm going to make you pay for defying me, by stripping them of their the municipality status. Now, I am opposed to Disney having a municipality status, but that was not the right reason to strip it of that. So he went after Disney for the wrong reasons. In other words, and there is no radical homosexual plot to sit there and poison the minds of little children in the schools. There isn't. I mean, anything that looks like it's grooming would be more than likely an isolated incident. It's been stated time and time again from the mainstream LGBTQ community that they don't want to sit there and they have a keep kids attitude out of it as a general rule. But some people think that if you're a gay man with a husband, and it just nonchalantly came up in the conversation, that teacher should be in trouble. No, not at all. I think that's unreasonable, and it's really stripping people of their First Amendment rights. And stripping them of their status as a human being, because LGBTQ people are human beings. There's nothing radical or unreasonable about equality for the LGBTQ people. But Ron DeSantis thinks there is. With all of Donald Trump's faults, he's got many. I know that there's been some discrimination coming from the administration of Donald Trump while he was president. I don't think it came from him himself. It was coming from people like Mike Pence, the vice president, and some of the administrators in some of the people in the administration that are deeply socially reactionary. That's probably the biggest problem with Republicans, because even with moderate Republicans, and I do consider Trump moderate on LGBTQ, he's not as liberal as I would like him to be, but he's certainly not religious right oriented. The problem with even the moderate Republicans is that they end up having to work with some of these far right reactionaries on the LGBTQ question. And I don't mean that, if they have some odious position to cancel them out or what have you, but I don't think they should be allowed to discriminate. They have a right to their views, but they don't have a right to discriminate. And what I just said still sounds, like from the religious right, they'll be like, oh, he's a woke skull, And the people on the left will probably think, that I'm some closet reactionary because I do not want to criminalize thoughts. You have a right to think what you want to think about whatever group. You have a right to do that. What you don't have a right to do is to discriminate. And so that is my criticism of LGBTQ issues regarding Donald Trump. And honestly, any moderate Republican for that matter, and I do consider Trump moderate on the LGBTQ question. The anti-riot laws that are being passed around in a lot of red states, Florida's got one of the worst. I don't know if it actually became law, but I know that there was a law being proposed where basically it would allow local law enforcement to be selective, to use their own judgment about how to enforce the law. Let's say if Cuban Americans were blocking the highway to protest against the government of Cuba, and the local law enforcement basically recently just kind of lightly tapped them on the wrist and say, don't do that. And let them on their merry way. I disagree with those right-wing people who want to sit there and demonize Cuba, but at the same time, they have a right to their views, and they have a right to protest. But you know what? Black Lives Matter and Antifa and any other left-wing movement and organizations have also a right to protest. But people like Ron DeSantis differ. And so there's like language in the law that would actually give law enforcement the right to crack the skulls of left-wing protesters. And in some cases, if somebody could be in a vehicle with the road being crossed and some right-winger angry at Antifa, for example, and so yeah, he decides to go and mow them out of the way with his car. He could get off by saying, "Oh, my life was threatened." This is dangerous. The law is very selective and very vague and that sort of thing. And the ACLU, I believe, is on that case. I do not know if that became the law of the state, but I do know that Ron DeSantis favors that law. There's a curriculum. Again, there's a curriculum. He wants to crack down on Antifa, but wants to have a curriculum on to denounce communism. Now, I'm not a Marxist-Leninist. I'm not a tanky. I'm not a Stalinist. I'm not a Maoist. I'm not any of these things. I mean, I am, when it comes to the left, I am a democratic socialist in the Eugene Debs tradition in America. And broadly, I am a democratic socialist globally or internationally in the way that Tommy Douglas in Canada was a democratic socialist, or Clement Attlee was a democratic socialist in the UK when he was alive, or Willy Brandt of Germany, or Olof Palme of Sweden, or today, Jeremy Corbyn, who's being fucked over by the Labour Party. I stand with Jeremy Corbyn right now, running as an independent in the Islington North constituency. I do not stand with Keir Starmer, who's now the leader of the Labour Party. I just want to make that clear. But my point is that I am on the side. I am ideologically a democratic socialist, which is why you see the rose on my emblem. Some people call it social democracy. That is the orientation. I do not consider people who are quote unquote Marxist-Leninists, tankies, communists. They're not my enemies. I have ideological, there's some ideological disagreements. I have ideological disagreements with liberalism. I have ideological disagreements with conservatism. I have a lot of ideological disagreement with people from across the spectrum. My point is this, that this curriculum in the school is wrong-headed. It's wrong, and is basically an enforced ideological orthodoxy. The kind of thing that Ron DeSantis claimed he's against is the thing he's for, but he's for his people, the right wing in this country. Now, and introducing things bullshit like material from PragerU in the curriculum in the public schools in Florida. I don't have kids, but if I lived in Florida, if I had kids, I'd take my kids out of the fucking public schools in Florida over to this kind of bullshit. And I'm usually one of those people that, kind of frown at people who want to homeschool their kids, but if there was an argument for it, it would be in Florida because, as I said, I don't like the kind of bullshit that he's trying to impose. Now, I'm going off on a long tangent here, but the point I'm trying to make is Ron DeSantis is extremely dangerous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this video. Now, I'm no longer a David Pakman fan. I'm not, but this video's from David Pakman. It's worth watching because even though I think that David Pakman has gone too mainstream, I happen to agree with him in this particular case here. So let me go ahead and play this from David Pakman. Sorry for playing David Pakman, but when you're correct on something, you're correct on something. So let me go ahead and play it, and I'll comment on it.
Harmonious is now using.
Come on.
Me, David Pakman, in one of his newest campaigns. Holiday. This is an ad that not only includes me, but it includes our friend Farron Cousins from Ring of Fire and many others. The point that the ad tries to make is that we on the left, we're all scared of Ron DeSantis. What we're actually saying in the clips that are used is that we think DeSantis is more dangerous than Trump to some degree because he's less incompetent. And that's true. It's actually not a terrible ad. The context is we all think DeSantis is nuts. Take a listen to this and you will see me pop up a number of times.
If Trump was the original Terminator, DeSantis is like the T-1000.
Ron DeSantis is far more dangerous than Donald Trump.
A more disciplined extremist.
They're just like, oh, well, at least DeSantis isn't crazy like Trump. And I'm like, no, you should be more scared of him than Trump.
He's more savvy, he's more coy, and he doesn't have the pitfalls that Donald Trump does.
The real reason this man is so terrifying is because he's managed to succeed in areas where Trump has failed.
If anyone out there thinks that somehow he is any better than Donald Trump, then they don't know Ron DeSantis.
He thought Donald Trump was bad. You've got another thing coming.
He may actually be able to do a lot of the things Trump merely wanted to do but failed to do.
DeSantis actually knows the system.
And I think Ron DeSantis is far more dangerous than Donald Trump.
But he's also more competent, I think.
Superior than Trump because he's not so incompetent.
He's more cunning.
He's not an incompetent administrator the way that Trump was.
He would be more able to get things done.
Ron DeSantis is far more dangerous than Donald Trump. Far more dangerous than Donald Trump.
Far more likely, if he becomes president, to successfully implement a lot of these horrible and disastrous ideas.
Now, you'll notice that when I mention horrible and disastrous ideas, they put the word awesome on the screen with a little asterisk. So, I saw a comment about this ad that it's very creepy.
Yeah, it is very creepy. But again, I just want to go and apologize for playing David Pakman, but I happen to agree with him there. That basically the premise is that Ron DeSantis is actually, at the end of the day, more dangerous than Donald Trump, which is if he drops out after Iowa, it would be something worth celebrating over. The idea of Ron DeSantis scares me. I will vote independent as I have done in the past. Whether it's Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, Namarata Ranhawa, doesn't matter. I will vote independent. I do not actually fear Donald Trump. I do not fear him. I don't want him in the White House. Don't want him returning. I don't fear him because he's a clown. He's a goofball. He's lazy. Honestly, he's kind of stupid when you think about it. He's incompetent. And Glenn Greenwald kind of said that himself. The reason why a lot of the right-wing things weren't done, like foreign policy-wise, the neoconservatives wanted to continue the war. And I'm not saying that Donald Trump was a peacenik, but there was slightly less war by accident by the United States when Trump was president. Again, it was by accident. The never Trumpers and the shit-lib resistance were working not necessarily together, but there was kind of an unspoken alliance to go against Trump, and the Trump people were going against them. So they were kind of busy. It was a lot of dysfunctionality. And, it was something that was welcome because, given if it would have been Ted Cruz in the White House, or it would have been Jeb Bush, or it would have been, Marco Rubio or Krispy Kreme Donuts, Chris Christie, or whomever, they would have been the military industrial complex would have been getting absolutely everything and more from those guys than they ever would with Trump. And you would have seen way more Quasan Salanamis happening. You'd have been seeing more military strikes and drones and all of this sort of thing. Some people just call it a Tuesday. You would have seen, and what Obama did, he extended 2 wars to 7 wars. And if he was able to extend 2 wars into 7 wars under his presidency, that a President Ted Cruz or a President Marco Rubio or Chris Christie, or today's time, Ron DeSantis or Namarata Rahawa, Nikki Haley, that they would go and take those 7 wars and expand it to 14 or 20. I mean, that's what they would do. It's just in their nature. So, in that regard. So, I hear Donald Trump talking about, I am the retribution. Donald Trump is a bombastic, loudmouth asshole. I mean, that's what he is. He's lazy, he's stupid, and he's an attention whore. I do not fear that man. I do not. I do not support him, but I do not fear him. And so, as I said, the Trump derangement syndrome by the neocon never Trumpers and the shit lib establishment Democrats, just boggles my mind. I even make a prediction that if Ron DeSantis somehow snuck by and became president, he would be more competent, as it was said in those commercials by some of those people, David Pakman and Farron Cousins and Zach from the Vanguard, which I don't really watch any of those shows that much anymore. Actually, Farron Cousins is okay, but he's a little too much of a Democrat. But ideologically, he's still kind of good on the issues. But the point I'm trying to make is that if he's back in the White House, if Ron DeSantis makes it to the White House, I actually think that Donald Trump will have he is so petty that I think he would turn back into the shit lib he used to be. The picture of Michelle Obama hugging Donald Trump because they have a bigger fascist problem. That's what I think will happen. So I'm going to play you this video. This was on generational change with Ken Perlman, but it has the two guys, Keaton and Russell from Do Dissidents up there, and they were talking about Ron DeSantis, and it's actually kind of the Russell spin is always interesting to listen to. They will both hate me for saying this, but I like Do Dissidents more than anybody else right now on the online left, as far as the big programs are concerned. Like one of the bigger tier programs, they kind of replaced Kyle Kalinske in a way for me, and I know they don't like Kyle Kalinske, but honestly, I used to listen to Kyle Kalinske more than anybody else out there, and I kind of stopped listening to him. Maybe once a week he'll have a good video or so. But right now these days, I like Do Dissidents because they represent the left as I used to know the left before the left kind of went kind of haywire. So anyway, I'll go ahead and play the generational change with Do Dissidents and share you my thoughts.
The turning point was the midterms, right? I mean, it was looking for a while there in mid-October that it was possible that there would be a real red wave. And if there were a real red wave, if all those Trump candidates, won in the Senate, in the state houses, up and down the House, then I think he would have been very, very difficult to beat. Because he'd have put wins on the board. But it turned out the exact opposite. The only places there were red waves were actually, ironically, where we're all from, New York and Florida. Florida had a red wave, right? DeSantis executed in all the ways that Republicans hoped to. He flipped a lot of light blue suburbs to light red,
just like Reagan.
He flipped urban areas. I think he actually won Miami-Dade outright.
He crushed in Miami-Dade. He won Palm Beach County outright, and he almost won Broward.
Biden barely won Broward. Yeah. Barely won Broward. So again, this is not a hard call. I just think it's
and I've also said with Trump all along, this is why I didn't have to see the midterms. If they have to drug him and put him in a hotel room with a dead hooker, they are not letting Donald Trump back in the White House.
You don't think?
No way.
Because I didn't think they would in the first place.
They will whack that motherfucker. They didn't
Let me tell you.
He's got more. Me. Oh my God!
You have to you listen very carefully. They've tried to take me out since the 80s. It's not happening.
Yes, you've been a douche that long.
That's correct, but I'm a great douche, the biggest douche you've ever seen. And believe me when I tell you, we are going to make America great again. In 24.
Make it great again.
Totally,
yeah.
He got in my way.
Ron DeSanctimonious, you created him.
I created that monster, and I will slay that monster. Believe me. He's just in the way temporarily. It won't last very long. I play the long game, like in golf.
His wife actually really likes him, though.
My wife is really incredible. Have you seen her? She's much more beautiful than Casey. Casey's totally ugly, terrible.
I don't think so.
But Mr. DeSanctimonious is a real ingrate. He couldn't wait until 28. He had to take in 24. Well, now it's on, Ron.
Now it's on, Ron.
Believe me, it is totally on. I'll see you on that mat out there. You're gonna, if you think you can go 12 rounds with Donald the King Trump, believe me, you're going to get knocked out, boy.
Oh, God.
I don't know who these guys are, but they totally don't like me. So
no, they don't like you.
They're really terrible.
Nobody really likes you.
But please, I ask you nicely for your vote. This time I'm going to have to ask for votes. Can you believe it? I really want your vote because I'm not as scary as the Ron DeSantis. Trust me, I'm much more stable genius, great guy.
Oh, you belong in the
So get out there and support me. You know you love it. It's great to be here with you, Jen. Not really. This is my show. Just came to check and make sure buddies behaving themselves properly. I'll see you later.
So gross. He's so lechy.
Now you're
okay. I just thought a little bit of levity for this video would be in need, and that was great. It was great what both of them had to say about that. But as I said, right now it looks like Ron DeSantis' campaign is not as solid as we all kind of thought it would have been previously. It's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to be the candidate that's going to take down Trump if Trump is to be taken down. So I want to also share where the real stupidity is on the left, and that would be the Young Turks' take on this squabble between DeSantis and Trump. I'm going to play it real quick, and I'll comment up quickly on that as well. So let's go with this. All right.
After terrorizing teachers by implying that they might be groomers, Ron DeSantis now appears to be getting a taste of his own medicine because Donald Trump is accusing him of being a groomer.
Love it.
My God, this story.
Yes. Okay.
The story is insane, but also chickens come home to roost. They do. Sometimes they come home to roost, which is why it's really, really important to not normalize a political environment where you start accusing people of being groomers or pedophiles when there's absolutely no evidence of that whatsoever.
No, I can't wait. Okay,
Yeah.
I just have to say 2 words before you tell us that.
Oh, you just have to say something.
I just have to say it. One is cock-a-doodle-doo. The other is a Jamaican word, all good. Okay, that means I'm glad it happened to you. All good. Oh, good. Let's see.
So I'm thinking about joining Truth Social just to follow Trump. Okay, because his posts are lit. All right, so let's go to the first post. He retruthed someone who shared a photo of a very young Ron DeSantis, 23 years old, when he used to teach at a high school. Okay, this was at a boarding school. Apparently, it shows him drinking with some high school girls. We did fact check this to make sure it was in fact a picture of Ron DeSantis, and that he in fact party with girls in his teaching capacity at this school. And the New York Times had reported on it previously, so it is true. Anyway, so Trump says this: "That's not Ron, is it? He would never do such a thing. Can't have that happen."
I can't have that. Okay, so the most shocking part of this whole story is that Ron DeSantis was a teacher. I mean, the guy who has declared war on teachers in 1,000 different ways was a teacher, apparently.
For a brief period of time, from 2001 to 2002, that was a school year he taught at this particular school known as the Darlington School. It's in Georgia. As I mentioned earlier, it's a boarding school. He was 23 years old at the time. He had just graduated Yale and was about to go to Harvard, which makes me really lose a lot of hope in any of these Ivy League schools. But nonetheless, that's what happened.
So look, do we think that Ron DeSantis was an actual groomer?
Yes.
In a age of 20. The whole grooming thing. Look, is grooming a real thing? Yes. Is it political? No. It has to do with actual sick people who do it, and it's whatever percentage of the population that it is. But to say that Republicans or Democrats or certain politicians do it, no, it's just total the worst kind of demagoguery, political hatchet jobs, etc. But now the hatchets are directed towards themselves. They're in a primary, kind of. Good luck. Start wielding those hatchets. Have fun.
Just choice entertainment, the 2024 Republican primary. Okay, and make sure you tune in here for all of that coverage. Now, that wasn't the only post. Trump later retruthed the same person, Dong-Chan Lee, who said Ron DeSantis was having a drink party with his students when he was a high school teacher. Having drinks with underage girls and cuddling with them certainly look pretty gross. And then he used a word, ephobophilia, or I don't know what. Okay, so that basically means having a primary sexual interest in mid to late adolescence. Okay, have you heard that?
That is very specific. I have.
Listen, if you know what that word is, you're sus. Like most people don't know what that is, right? Like
you'd almost have to be accused of it in court to know that word.
Yeah, I can't even pronounce it. Anyway, nonetheless, so Trump retruthed that and said, "No way," or "No way,"
or "No way."
Can't let that happen.
Can't let that happen. So, as we mentioned, the claims aren't 100%. Look, do I think he's a groomer based on what they've presented? No, there's no evidence that Ron DeSantis is a groomer, okay? But he did teach at the school. We gave you the facts.
But he was a teacher, and aren't they all? What was he doing with those underage girls? Teaching it. Okay, I love it, I love it. So, hey, MAGA guys, you tell me. I mean, is Trump lying, or is Ron DeSantis a groomer? Yeah. Not for me to decide. It's for you guys to decide.
Well, I mean, you're addressing the MAGA crowd.
Yeah.
And we do have some sound coming from a MAGA pastor who is very concerned about the lack of loyalty toward his preferred Republican presidential candidate. Let's watch.
There is no MAGA without Donald Trump. It infuriates me to the core to see disloyalty. When you separate a man from a message, all of a sudden the message will die because the anointing is on the man. Donald Trump is the leader of the MAGA movement. You watched what happened to him 2 short years ago. You saw it with your eyes around midnight. Amen? For you to leave him now makes you a traitor of the MAGA movement. I don't care if you like it or not. When you do not support the man that God has ordained for the job, you are a Judas.
Okay, let me just address the crazy preacher. That motherfucker thinks anybody who's the leader of the Republican Party at the moment is the chosen man of God. That's just how they all are. These right-wing nutcases who are, they're that far to the right and demented as this pastor is. They think that they thought of George W. Bush was their leader. They think that whoever it is at the moment, and some of these MAGA folks were not initially Trump supporters. It's a big coalition of people, big tent. You have your libertarian Ron Paul T people. You got your independents who like Trump. You got your Obama supporters that felt like Hillary Clinton let them down, and people like this is what I think was the icky movement conservatism, religious right, corporatist, sort of centrist-y people who are hung up in 1993 Rush Limbaugh talking points. And that's, that's, and they're probably the most disgusting of them all. So, but anyway, I'll let Anna Kasparian say what she needs to say, and I'll continue my thoughts.
Riveting commentary there.
Kind of was, though.
Definitely compelling. Yeah.
No, can I just comment on his riveting commentary? Number one, I thought maybe he put on a shirt instead of the robe that he came out of the shower with. Okay. But most importantly, that's actually, believe it or not, he's a lunatic. But remember, the base is not so mentally stable. Okay. That's the kind of language they love. So when he starts putting it in religious terms, anyone who's disloyal to Trump is a Judas. Oh, that's going to resonate. That's going to leave a mark, okay? But the most important thing he said was the anointing is around him. So if you're not religious, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? But for religious folks, you'll know what that means. That means that God anointed him. So it's not about a movement even. It's not.
Anyway, what I wanted to say about this is that, I'm sorry I played it a little long because that was probably kind of interesting from them. And Young Turks are very seldom relevant in my life these days. One time they were, not now. But they're dismissing Ron DeSantis as a groomer. Was the wrong approach to take, and that's what I want to say. It was the wrong approach to take. You don't have to like Trump. But you could use Trump to actually do damage to somebody who's worse than him. And so the Young Turks kind of take a position sometimes very, very similar to MSNBC when they got corrupted, or CNN. And the thing about it is they may not want Trump back. I think they're sincere, but I do think that CNN and MSNBC and regular mainstream news outlets, they're not Fox or OAN, they, for different reasons, they do agree with Fox and OAN and Newsmax that they would like to see Trump back because it's going to be a big time ratings for them. They won't tell you that, but that's how I feel, And will the Democratic leadership, are they worried about it? No, even if they became minority in Congress and a super Republican majority ensued, I don't see that happening per se. I think they will gain in the Senate, and they may do a modest gain in the House next year. And I could be wrong saying that, but that's kind of where I think it's headed. And I do think that Trump will more than likely return to the White House in January 2025. The media and the Democrats don't mind because it's going to be fundraising. It's going to be for those that are in positions to make money and create clout for themselves. They're going to love it. They're going to reap the rewards of this. Just that's how cynical I am when it comes to this sort of thing. I will play one more video and conclude with my final thoughts. And this is from Jimmy Dore. If I got to go and play some Young Turks, I got to go and balance it out with some Jimmy Dore. And this is what Jimmy Dore had to say. And I do think he's in his way talking about Ron DeSantis in what he has to say. This is from, I believe, maybe about a month or two back. So this is what he has to say, and I do think he's on to something. Give me a second here. Video will show up.
What we're trying to say is that Trump was a cartoon version of the real fascist that's on his way. The same conditions that gave us Donald Trump wasn't racism. That wasn't what gave us Donald Trump. It wasn't racism. We just elected a black guy president 2 times in a row, overwhelmingly. And a lot of those people for him voted for Trump. And it wasn't because of racism, because that's what people want you to think. Is Trump racist? Is there racism in America? Yes. That's not what gave us Trump. What gave us Trump is people desperate economically because a class war has been waged against workers in this country since 1980. It's won by the billionaire class. That's why. What we're trying to say is that Trump was
okay, that kind of repeats those YouTube shorts. But what Jimmy Dore was saying is overall fundamentally very correct. Like there's a lot of Obama supporters, white Obama supporters that voted for Obama twice, and they're Democrats, and they live in these states, like Ohio and Michigan and Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, that they vote for Democrats, hoping that they were going to go and do something for the jobs, keep the factories here, keep the manufacturing base, what little bit that exists left here in the United States, and those people felt like the Democrats were saying fuck off, and they're right. So what Michael Moore called the Brexit states kind of is or was. The thing is that like Jimmy Dore said, Donald Trump presented a very cartoonish vision of fascism, and there's a real one around the corner, whether it be Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis, or if the Republicans ever get something going on with Project 2025, that's probably more dangerous. And a Democrat, Joe Biden, could be reelected. And if the Republicans are in full control of the country, otherwise, Project 2025 could take place. You still could have fascism. And that's where the real fascism is coming from think tanks like the Heritage Foundation and people like that with this Project 2025, which I'm going to have to do a video on that pretty soon. But to surmise what Project 2025 is to take over the various institutions of this country, within the government, within academia, within, I guess, entertainment, and to basically get rid of the shit liberty and put in a far right agenda running it. William Buckley wrote about it, and when William Buckley was writing about it in 1953, God, Man, and Yell, even though I disagree with William Buckley, I don't think he wanted to take it to the extent that these people would take it today. And God, Man, and Yell was arguing for capitalism, conservatism, and Christianity. And that's what the Heritage Foundation wants to do. But I think that they want to add, they want to combine the darker side of the neocons and maybe sprinkle it with a little bit of the alt-right in there, which could be very dangerous in this outcome. So there is fascism lurking around the corner if we're not careful. And, and if Ron DeSantis somehow become president, that's where it will really be problematic. It will. So let's see here. Let's see. This is okay. I'm going to go back up here. Warren said, yeah, we're doing a New Year's Eve show Sunday night around 11 p.m. Warren, I will be in that audience waiting for it. Let's see. Propagandists think that their foolishness works on everybody. It only works on the gullible, and more people are starting to wake up. I hope that a lot of people would wake up, and I have always thought that there were signs of people waking up, and then somehow I lose my faith more in the American people. Just depends, on the issue and all that. It's like Louisiana governor race between Edwin Edwards and David Duke. People said Edwin Edwards could blow Aaron Neville on Mardi Gras and he'll still win. I remember when David Duke won that race for the for the Louisiana State House in 1989. That's when I first heard of him. And man, that was scary. But, you know, and the Republican Party went further right since then. So let's see. Shank needs to watch out making animal impressions. You may sing Mr. Ed. A horse, a horse, a horse, a horse. Mr. Ed Wilbur. Oh my God, did I really do that? Anyway, yeah. Braglands will be around today at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're back after a hiatus, and we're going to do a best of 2023 show. And so I'm looking forward to that. And any other announcements? I may do a stream tomorrow night, and I'll certainly try to do a stream on Sunday. So there is also that. And I'm going to try to stream on a regular schedule. Again, it's after the holidays are kind of over at this point. So hopefully you'll be seeing more of me online. It's just been nuts lately. And that's why I have not been streaming on a regular schedule like I like to. So if you all like what you heard, please press like and comment any way you disagree with what I have to say. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share my channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we are the muckrakers of our time. In addition, I just want to remind everybody to subscribe again. Subscribe to this channel. Help. We're getting close to 1,000 subscribers on this channel. So the Willie Bragg Show. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the Willie Bragg Show. I would like to make it over 1,000 sometime prior to February, if we can do this, or March or something like that. It's been a long hill to climb. Just please subscribe to this channel. And same thing with Braglands. Go ahead and subscribe to Braglands as well. Please do so. We need to build on that channel as well. And always remember to these things right now. Make this your goal for 2024. Free Palestine. Free Julian Assange. Oppose corporate media and their perspectives. Embrace independent media. And again, most importantly, to fight against these neocon wars and to fight against capitalism, especially the kind that we are living with this neoliberal bullshit that we have to endure every day. And neoliberalism, unfortunately, lays the groundwork for a looming fascism. So we need to put a stop to the fascism and get to the rot of it by defeating capitalism, at least the capitalism that's practiced through neoliberalism today. So until next time, I am Willie Bragg. I will say goodbye, and I will see y'all in a few hours on Braglands. Take care. Peace.